Hello YouTube, this is a follow-up to my previous videos on drawing perspectives. We're going to be using Minecraft as a visual aid today, so hope that's fun for the kids, right? And we're going to start by going over the basics and we'll work from there. And anyways, let's get started. So what we're looking at right now is a prime example of what a one-point perspective drawing might end up looking like if you were to do Minecraft aesthetic and spend a lot of time with your ruler measuring this stuff out. So I won't go over too much detail because we have covered single point perspective in other videos, but essentially in single point perspective we're all converging at one point. I guess not we're all, but the lines that you're drawing. So anything that is going away from you is going to converge at this point right here. So I've gone ahead and drawn these red lines to help you see how this relates to previous videos in which we've drawn a cube in that other video. And this is the same kind of perspective that we did with the stairs, but the stairs could actually work in future perspectives that I'll be showing you. But what we see here is that everything is, like I said, converging at one point. And single point perspective is useful whenever you're looking head on at an object or a rectangular face. Anytime you start to alter that angle though, you start to get some weird distortions if you're to try and do that with single point perspective. Honestly, I don't think that there's really a good way to do that using just single point perspective. So anytime you introduce an angle, you're going to introduce a second vanishing point. And so that's what we'll go over with these layers. So now you can see that we're looking at the edge of this gravel block. So we're no longer concerned so much with the face of the gravel block, and two-point perspective does indeed add a little more emphasis to the edges, since the edges are having a bit more character development here. And as we're looking at this object, you can see that the lines aren't converging at one point anymore. They're converging off to the sides. And there's actually 2 points that all of these are converging to, which if I do that, now you can see them. So we've got 1 point over here, it's creeping in on the side of the canvas, and we've got another point way over here. But you can see that with our red lines, everything is still referencing those 2 points. And if I were to, or if I wanted to go up and draw red lines around this box, you can see pretty clearly from here that it would actually converge at the same points. Okay, that's pretty clear. And Minecraft is great at this because everything is right angles and parallels, so works great for my visual aid. But there is still some limitations to this two-point perspective. And you can see right now we're looking at something that is directly at eye level. But anytime you're drawing something that is above or below your eye level, for example, if you look up here at the clouds, you can kind of get a clue as to what we're going to. You're going to introduce another vanishing point, and that's what we have in these next layers I've drawn up. So now we're floating above the ground. It's still the same location, but you can see something's going on with our vertical lines here that's a little more apparent than it was in the previous images. And really what they're doing is they're all converging at a point as well. So in single point and 2 point perspective, all of our vertical lines were parallel and very easy to draw because you would just draw a straight line up and down with your ruler. But now we have to put a little more planning into where we put those lines and how they are angled in relation to each other. And so if I unveil this image, this layer here, now you can see that we still have the 2 points along the horizon, but we're alluding to a third point that unfortunately does not fit in this canvas. Depending on how you set up your drawing though, you could put your point here and it would just add more distortion to the vertical portions of your drawing, which depending on what you're going for might actually be a good thing. But in this case, since Minecraft kind of tries to keep a realistic idea of what a user would see if they were human size and standing on the ground, the point is way too far off the canvas to make it desirable to draw in. But this illustrates where our perspective guidelines start to fall apart. And the other big way that they start to let us down is right now everything looks good because it's all right angles, perpendicular, and parallel to each other. And if you're drawing a world like Minecraft, that would be just fine, but we don't live in the Minecraft world, and we need something a little more descriptive of what our life is like. And for that, we're going to need a little more advanced technique to perspective drawing. And that's what we're going to explore in this next segment. In the previous clip, we started to talk about how once you start to skew the relation of your objects to each other as far as how well they're parallelized, I think that's a word. It's a word now. Anyways, let's just take a look at what we've got here. So this part down here is like a plan view of the drawing that you want to do. And this is actually a technique called two-point pull-down perspective. And it's an advanced technique that helps you draw objects in relation to each other when they're not parallel. And there's some other things that you can do with this, such as setting a scale and things like that, and we'll cover that in a future video, but for now we just want to keep it really, really simple. So you can see I've got two objects drawn in what will be our finished product, as marked here by the black lines. This is kind of like the frame that we're looking at. And let's break down what we've got here. So the picture plane is a line, it's basically a line that helps you establish where everything is going to be in relation to each other. And the way that works is you've got an observer, which is either yourself or a camera, and it is looking from here down at your plan, right? And so everything that it can see is these faces here. So if we were to draw, if we were to take our ruler and we set one of the points directly in that observer and we look at this corner, you can see that everything over here is not visible to the observer. But anything that starts to come towards this angle in relation to the observer is going to start to look pretty skewed. Same deal over here. If we look at that other corner, you can see that we can't see this back side. We also can't see these sides of the objects here. So that's why for these two boxes in our picture, we've only got one side visible. But I'm going to break down how you do this process using this object here. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to set up the vanishing points for this third box. And the way that we do that is we get our ruler so that it is parallel with one of the faces, just like so. And now we drag our ruler so that it is crossing our observer. Now we're going to put a mark on our picture plane where our ruler crosses it. Okay? We're going to do the same thing for the other parallel faces of our object. So now we've got the ruler parallel there. We move it so that it crosses our observer, and we put another vanishing point there. Okay? Or sorry, not a vanishing point, but this is kind of a landmark on the picture plane that will help us establish those vanishing points. Now we want to set our ruler so that it is going straight up and down, so that 90 degrees, and we're going to set it so that it crosses at the intersection of our point and the picture plane, as well as the horizon line, and we're just going to copy that point up there. We're going to do the same thing for this one over here. Okay, so now these are the horizon points for this third object here, and you can see they're very close together, and like I said, that's because the observer is very close to these objects. You can set this drawing up a little differently so that you're not so close to the picture plane. Essentially what you could do, as you're about to see, is you could put the horizon line down below the picture plane and do the picture plane up here. You can do it either way. Alright, now that we've got our two vanishing points established, we're going to start copying things from our plan view up into the picture. And what we do is we put our observer so that it's being the control of everything. So we put one of our points there in the observer, and I want to figure out where this corner is going to be in our drawing. So I'm going to use a different color for this so that it's easier to see. Let's do purple. I haven't done a purple yet. Just drag that there in case I need it later. So we're going to put a point where it crosses there, and then we're going to set our ruler so that it's vertical, and we can throw a line in. Okay, and I'm going to make this a pretty tall object so that it's a little different than these other two squat objects there. And we're going to keep doing this until we have all of our vertical lines defined. So now I'm looking at this corner here. I put a point where it crosses our picture plane. Then we set our ruler to vertical. Put a line. And we need to grab this third point. Okay. And you can grab the back points. It's not necessary though, because in this drawing we can't see them. Okay. So now we've got our vertical lines established. Now we reference our vanishing points to top this off. So I want the bottom of the object to be defined by this line here. And we'll put a line here. And then to do the other face, we just use our other vanishing point. And now we just do a little bit of tidying up to make it so that everything's connecting. Pretty easy to do. Then we can get rid of that, use our eraser. And now we've just cleaned it up a bit. So now, and this is where you're going to have to use your imagination a little bit more. Imagine you are this observer and you're looking at these objects. And if you're that observer, what you should see in your mind is something that looks something like this. Now, like I said, this is a little distorted because we've got the observer really close to the objects and the picture plane as a result. In the next clip, I'll show you how you can just swap these things around so that you can fix that a little bit. I decided to do this last clip as a time lapse since I go over a lot of the same information as in the previous clip, and there's only a few key details that you need to notice as you're looking at the screen here. First, notice that basically I've swapped the picture plane and the horizon line. That means that our horizon is going to be lower on the canvas, but what that really gains us is a farther distance from the observer and the picture plane. So now you can see as this drawing starts to come together, we get a more realistic distortion while keeping a nice perspective. So this is what you would really want to do if you're trying to make it look more realistic. If you're trying to make a more tense visualization, you can move the observer closer to the picture plane. But if you're going for something that's more photorealistic, you want to have them a bit more spaced apart. And the other key details you'll notice is with the picture plane being above the horizon line, the technique remains the same, except instead of dragging those points up from the picture plane, we'll now drag them down from the picture plane. But the process is exactly the same. Anyways guys, I hope you found this tutorial useful. I'd love to see what you come up with using this technique, and if you have any requests for future videos, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Anyways, this is Odd Job Entertainment, signing off.